Nobody told me falling for her would be signing my own death sentence. The thing is, in my world you don't ask questions. You follow orders, keep your head down, and never ever look twice at someone who's off limits. But there I was, standing in that fancy courthouse hallway watching her walk past me like she owned the whole damn building, and I knew right then I was screwed. She had this vibe, you know? Like sunshine breaking through storm clouds, totally oblivious to the darkness surrounding her. Her old man? Judge Richard Morrison, the guy who'd been putting my family's soldiers behind bars for the past 15 years. The same dude who sent my cousin Tony up the river for 25 to life. And me? I'm Dante Russo, son of the most feared mob boss on the West Coast. Our families weren't just enemies, they were like fire and gasoline, destined to explode. But here's the kicker, when our eyes met that day, something clicked, something dangerous, something that would tear both our worlds apart. Hey, real quick before we dive deeper into this crazy story, if you want to see how this forbidden romance turns into absolute chaos when both families find out, hit that subscribe button and smash the like. Because trust me, what happens next is gonna blow your mind. You don't want to miss the moment when the judge discovers his daughter's secret, or when my father finds out I've been seeing the enemy. This is the kind of story that'll have you on the edge of your seat, and I'm dropping new intense stories like this every week. So subscribe now, you'll thank me later. Her name was Elena. I found that out 3 days later when I saw her at this coffee shop in downtown LA, totally by accident. Or maybe it wasn't an accident at all. Maybe the universe was playing some sick joke on both of us. She was sitting by the window reading some thick book about criminal justice, and I remember thinking how ironic that was. I walked in trying to act casual, ordered my usual black coffee, and somehow ended up at the table right next to hers. Smooth, right? Real smooth. She looked up, and boom, those green eyes hit me like a freight train all over again. I'm not the kind of guy who gets nervous. I've stared down rival gang members, handled deals worth millions, but this girl had me sweating like it was my first day on the job. She smiled, just a little, like she recognized me too but couldn't quite place where from. That's when I made the dumbest decision of my life. I started talking to her. We clicked instantly, and that's what made it so dangerous. She told me she was in law school, following in her father's footsteps, trying to make the world a better place. I almost choked on my coffee when she said that. Here I was, literally representing everything she was studying to fight against, and she had no clue. I kept my cards close, told her I worked in family business, which wasn't technically a lie. She laughed at my jokes, and man, that laugh could light up the darkest room. We talked for hours that day about everything and nothing. Movies, music, her dreams of becoming a prosecutor, my carefully edited version of life in California. I left out the part about the guns, the money laundering, the late-night meetings where people's fates got decided over whiskey and cigars. The crazy part? I wanted to be different around her. For the first time in my 28 years, I wanted to be someone else, someone clean, someone worthy of that smile. But you can't run from who you are, especially when your last name is Russo and everyone in the city knows what that means. I started seeing her regularly after that. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates, walks on the beach, late-night phone calls where we'd talk until sunrise. Every moment with Elena felt like stealing something precious, something that didn't belong to me. And I was right, because it didn't. She belonged to a world of law and order, justice and righteousness. I belonged to shadows and secrets, blood and loyalty. 3 months in, things got real serious real fast. I was falling hard, like tumbling down a cliff with no parachute kind of falling. She'd started staying over at my place, this penthouse in Santa Monica that I'd told her I got through smart investments. She never questioned it, never asked why a guy in his 20s could afford ocean views and designer furniture. Maybe she didn't want to know, or maybe she was just that trusting. Either way, I was living 2 lives, and it was exhausting. During the day, I was Dante, the sweet boyfriend who brought her favorite pastries and remembered how she liked her coffee. At night, I was back to being my father's son, sitting in dark rooms discussing territory disputes and dealing with problems that needed to disappear. My boy Marco, he's been my right hand since we were kids running around Little Italy. He warned me. Dude straight up told me I was playing with fire, that this thing with Elena was gonna blow up in my face. But I didn't listen. Love makes you stupid like that, makes you think you're invincible, that somehow you can keep all the balls in the air without dropping any. I kept her away from family events, made up excuses why she couldn't meet my folks yet. Told her my dad was old school, needed time to warm up to the idea of me being serious with someone. She bought it, said she understood, that her father was the same way. If only she knew her father and mine were on opposite sides of a war that had been raging for decades. The first crack in my perfect lie came on a Tuesday night. I was supposed to meet Elena for dinner at this fancy Italian place in Beverly Hills, but my father called an emergency meeting. One of our shipments got intercepted, and there was talk of a rat in the organization. I had to cancel last minute, told Elena I had a family emergency. She was cool about it, said she'd grab dinner with her roommate instead. But here's where it gets wild, she ended up at the same restaurant, different time, and she saw me. Not with my family handling a crisis, but walking out with two of my father's enforcers. Guys who looked exactly like what they were. Dangerous. I saw the confusion in her eyes from across the parking lot, watched her trying to process what she was seeing. I played it off, introduced them as cousins, said we'd just finished a family dinner. She nodded, but something shifted that night. I could feel it. She started asking questions after that. Casual at first, like where exactly did I work, what did family business mean, why did I always pay in cash? I deflected, changed subjects, used charm to redirect her attention. But Elena wasn't stupid, far from it. She was training to be a prosecutor, reading people and spotting lies was literally what she was learning to do. The walls were closing in, and I knew it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. What I didn't know was how soon that would happen, or how devastating it would be when it did. I should have ended it right there, should have walked away and saved us both the pain. But I was selfish and I was in love, and those two things together make for a lethal combination. My father started getting suspicious too. He noticed I was distracted, missing calls, showing up late to meetings. In our world, that kind of behavior raises red flags. People start wondering if you're talking to the feds, if you've lost your edge, if you're becoming a liability. My old man pulled me aside one night after a sit-down, asked me straight up if I was seeing someone. I told him yeah, some girl from college, nothing serious. He looked at me with those cold eyes that had seen everything, done everything, and said something that chilled me to the bone. He said, in this life, everyone you love becomes a weakness and weaknesses get exploited. He wasn't wrong. In the mafia, love is a luxury you can't afford, a vulnerability that enemies use against you. But I was already too far gone, already imagining a future that could never exist. Then came the night that changed everything, the night fate started closing in on both of us. It was Elena's birthday and I wanted to do something special, something that showed her how much she meant to me. I rented out this whole rooftop restaurant overlooking the city, had them fill the place with her favorite flowers, the whole 9 yards. She deserved that and more. When she walked in wearing this emerald dress that matched her eyes, I swear time stopped. We had dinner, danced under the stars, and for a few hours, I actually forgot about the life waiting for me below those twinkling lights. She was happy, genuinely happy, and that made all the lying almost feel worth it. Almost. That's when she dropped the bomb. She told me her father wanted to meet me. Said she'd been talking about me non-stop, and Judge Morrison was curious about the guy who'd stolen his daughter's heart. My blood went cold right there. I tried to play it cool, said sure, whenever he's ready, but inside I was freaking out. How was I supposed to sit across from the man who'd made it his life's mission to destroy my family? The same judge who had my uncle's case file probably sitting on his desk right now? I stalled for 2 weeks, making up excuses about work conflicts and family obligations. But Elena was persistent, and honestly, I was running out of reasons to say no without raising major suspicions. So I agreed. Biggest mistake of my life, or maybe it was inevitable all along. The dinner was set for the following Saturday at the Morrison family home in Pacific Palisades. Fancy neighborhood, the kind where everyone's lawn is perfect and security cameras watch every corner. I showed up in my best suit, carrying expensive wine, playing the role of the respectful boyfriend meeting his girl's parents for the first time. My hands were sweating so bad I could barely grip the steering wheel. This wasn't fear of making a good impression, this was fear of recognition, of my entire world imploding in one dinner. Judge Richard Morrison opened the door himself, and man, seeing him in person was surreal. I'd seen his face in newspapers, watched him on the news delivering statements about organized crime crackdowns, but standing there shaking his hand felt like touching a live wire. He was tall, probably mid-50s, with gray hair and these sharp eyes that seemed to look straight through you. He sized me up immediately, that prosecutor instinct never really turns off, I guess. Elena introduced me as Dante, conveniently leaving off my last name in that initial moment. Her mom, Catherine, was warmer, welcoming even, offering me drinks and making small talk about where I grew up. I kept my answers vague, talked about growing up in California, loving the beach, normal stuff that wouldn't trigger any alarms. Dinner started off okay. We talked about Elena's progress in law school, her internship applications, plans for the future. Judge Morrison asked about my work, and I gave him the same rehearsed line about family business and investments. He nodded, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. This dude didn't get to where he was by taking things at face value. Then the conversation shifted, and that's when things got dicey. He started talking about a case he just presided over, some mob-related trial that ended in convictions. He was passionate about it, talking about how organized crime was poisoning communities, destroying families, and how he dedicated his career to stopping it. Elena chimed in, agreeing with her father, talking about justice and accountability. And there I was, sitting at their table, nodding along while internally dying, representing everything they stood against. Judge Morrison looked at me, then really looked at me, and asked what I thought about organized crime in Los Angeles. It was a test. I knew it was a test. I played it safe, said crime was bad for everyone, that families deserve to feel safe in their communities. Generic enough to not raise flags, but not so enthusiastic that it seemed fake. He seemed satisfied, moved on to asking about my family. Where were they from originally? What did my father do? Did I have siblings? Each question felt like a trap, like I was walking through a minefield blindfolded. I told him my dad was semi-retired, that I had a younger sister, that we were originally from New York but moved west years ago. All true, just missing the crucial details that would have had him reaching for his phone to call the police. The dinner wrapped up without incident, and as Elena walked me to my car, she was glowing. Told me her parents loved me, that her dad especially seemed impressed with how respectful and mature I was. She kissed me goodnight, said she couldn't wait for our families to meet properly someday. I smiled and agreed, knowing that day could never come, that the fantasy we were living in had an expiration date rapidly approaching. I drove home that night feeling sick to my stomach, not because dinner went badly but because it went too well. Because for a moment there, I'd let myself imagine it could work, that somehow I could bridge these two impossible worlds. Reality hit hard when I walked into my apartment and found Marco waiting for me with news. My father wanted to see me immediately. Something big was going down. I got to the family estate in Malibu around midnight. The place was lit up, cars everywhere, all the major players were there. My father was in his office, surrounded by his top guys, and the tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. He told me to sit down, poured me a drink, and then laid it out. The feds were moving on us, building a case, and word on the street was Judge Morrison was going to be overseeing the grand jury. My heart nearly stopped. Of all the judges in Los Angeles, it had to be him. My father was talking strategy, discussing lawyers and contingency plans, but all I could think about was Elena. What would happen when this went public? When her father's face was all over the news in connection with taking down the Russo family? How long before she put two and two together and realized who I really was? I should have come clean right then. Should have told my father about Elena, warned him that I'd complicated things in ways he couldn't imagine. But I kept my mouth shut, nodded along with the plans, and prayed somehow I could keep these worlds from colliding. Spoiler alert, I couldn't. The universe has a funny way of making sure secrets don't stay buried, especially secrets this big. Over the next few days, I tried to act normal around Elena. We met for coffee, went to the movies, did all the couple stuff we always did. But I was distracted, constantly checking my phone for updates from my family, jumping at every news notification. She noticed something was off, asked me multiple times if everything was okay. I blamed it on work stress, said we were dealing with some complicated business deals. She offered to help me relax, suggested we take a weekend trip up the coast to get away from it all. I agreed, thinking maybe a few days away would buy me time to figure out my next move. We drove up to Santa Barbara, stayed at this beautiful beachfront hotel, and for 48 hours I pretended everything was fine. We walked on the beach, had romantic dinners, made plans for a future that I knew deep down would never happen. On our last night there, as we sat watching the sunset, Elena turned to me and said something that shattered what was left of my denial. She said she loved me, that she'd never felt this way about anyone, and that no matter what challenges came our way, we'd face them together. I told her I loved her too, and I meant it. That was the problem. I loved her so much it was killing me, knowing what was coming, knowing that love wouldn't be enough to survive the storm that was about to hit. We drove back to LA Sunday night, and I dropped her off at her apartment with a kiss and a promise to see her Tuesday after she finished a big exam. I watched her walk inside, waved as she turned to blow me one last kiss, and felt this overwhelming sense of doom. Like I was watching the last good moment before everything went to hell. Monday morning, all hell broke loose. The feds executed simultaneous raids on multiple Russo properties. My father's office, 3 of our warehouses, even my apartment got hit. I was at a separate location when it happened, got the call from Marco, who was losing his mind. They had warrants for everything, were seizing documents, computers, financial records. This wasn't a fishing expedition anymore, this was endgame. And leading the legal charge, signing off on those warrants, was Judge Richard Morrison. The irony was almost poetic. The man whose daughter I was in love with was the same man orchestrating my family's takedown. I knew it was only a matter of time now before Elena found out, before she saw my name connected to the Russo crime family, before she realized the man she loved was the son of the mobster her father had sworn to put away. I tried calling her, needed to hear her voice one more time before everything fell apart, but she didn't answer. She was probably still in her exam, completely unaware that both our worlds were about to collide in the most catastrophic way possible. That's when my phone rang. It was my father, and he only said 4 words before hanging up. They know about her. Hey, hold up for just a second. What are you thinking right now? I mean, can you imagine being in Dante's shoes? Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you do in this situation? Would you run? Would you come clean to Elena before it's too late? Have you ever been caught in a lie that spiraled out of control? Or maybe you know someone who fell for the wrong person. Share your story in the comments. I read every single one, and your experiences help me bring more real, intense content like this to you. Seriously, your comments keep this channel going. Now stick with me, because what happens next, when both families finally discover the truth, it's absolutely insane. You need to see how this plays out. Those 4 words echoed in my head like a death sentence. They know about her. I didn't even ask how, it didn't matter. In our world, secrets have a shelf life, and mine had just expired. My father demanded I come to the estate immediately, said we needed to talk face to face. The drive there felt like driving to my own funeral. I knew what was coming, the lecture about loyalty, about how I'd endangered the family, about how love was weakness, and I just handed our enemies a loaded gun. What I didn't expect was to find my father sitting calmly in his office, almost too calm, with that look he gets when he's already 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, slid one across the desk to me, and asked me one simple question. Did I know who she was when I started seeing her? I told him the truth, said no, that I'd found out later, and by then it was too late, I was already in too deep. He nodded slowly, like he understood, which somehow made it worse. Then he told me something that flipped my entire world upside down. He'd known about Elena for weeks. Had her followed, investigated, knew every detail about our relationship. And he'd let it continue. I was confused, angry, demanding to know why he'd let me walk into this disaster if he knew. That's when he laid out his plan, and I realized my father was way more ruthless than I'd ever imagined. He saw Elena as an opportunity, a way to get inside information on Judge Morrison's case against us. He wanted me to use her, to get close to her father through her, to find out prosecution strategies and witness lists. My stomach turned. He was asking me to weaponize the woman I loved, to turn our relationship into an intelligence operation. I refused flat out, told him I wouldn't do it, that Elena had nothing to do with this war between our families. My father's face hardened then, and he reminded me that in this life, you don't get to choose love over family. You just don't. He gave me an ultimatum. Either I played along and used my relationship with Elena to help the family, or he'd handle the situation his way. And his way, he made crystal clear, involved making sure Elena and her father understood the consequences of coming after the Russo family. It wasn't a direct threat, my father was too smart for that, but the implication was clear as day. If I didn't cooperate, Elena could get hurt. Not by his hand directly, but in this world, accidents happen, especially to people connected to ongoing investigations. I felt trapped, completely boxed in with no good options. I could protect Elena by cutting her off completely, disappearing from her life without explanation. But that would destroy her emotionally, and wouldn't stop my father from potentially using her as leverage anyway. Or I could play along with my father's plan, betray Elena's trust even further, and maybe, just maybe, find a way to protect her from the inside while looking for an exit strategy for both of us. I left that meeting feeling like I'd aged 10 years in one night. My phone was blowing up with texts from Elena, wondering where I was, saying she had exciting news to share. I couldn't face her, not yet, not while my father's words were still ringing in my ears. I needed time to think, to figure out how to navigate this nightmare. But time was the one thing I didn't have, because while I was dealing with my family crisis, Elena was dealing with her own. Her father had come home that night with news about the raids, about the major breakthrough in his case against the Russo crime family. He was excited, energized, talking about how this could be the case that finally brought down one of California's most notorious mob families. And that's when he mentioned the name. Dante Russo, son of crime boss Vincent Russo, whose apartment had been raided that morning. Elena's world stopped spinning right there at her family dinner table. She told me later that she felt like she couldn't breathe, like someone had punched all the air out of her lungs. Her father kept talking, oblivious to his daughter's mounting panic, explaining how they'd been building this case for months, how the Russo family had evaded justice for decades but not anymore. Elena excused herself, said she wasn't feeling well, and locked herself in her childhood bedroom. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and Googled my name. Every article, Every news story, every piece of evidence confirming that the man she'd fallen in love with was exactly who her father spent his career fighting against. Photos of me at family events standing next to known mobsters. Court documents listing me as a person of interest in multiple investigations. Her whole relationship, every moment we'd shared, recontextualized in the worst possible way. She called me 17 times that night. I watched my phone light up over and over, knowing each ring was another piece of her heart breaking, but I couldn't answer. What was I supposed to say? How do you explain something like this? By morning, the story had hit the news. Major outlets were covering the raids and my name was everywhere. Dante Russo, heir apparent to the Russo crime family, targeted in federal investigation. My face was plastered across every channel, described as a high-ranking member of organized crime. There was no hiding anymore, no pretending, no more carefully constructed lies. Everyone knew who I was now, including Elena. She showed up at my place around noon, bypassed building security by telling them she was my girlfriend, which technically she still was, though I knew that was about to change. When I opened the door and saw her standing there, eyes red from crying, mascara smudged, I wanted to die right there. She looked at me like I was a stranger, like she was seeing me for the first time, and in a way she was. This was the real me, not the sanitized version I'd been selling her for months. She didn't yell, didn't scream, which somehow made it worse. She just asked me one question with this broken voice that cut deeper than any knife. Was any of it real? I told her yes, all of it, every moment, every feeling, every word of love was real. The only thing that wasn't real was the person I'd pretended to be. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face, and said that was the same thing, that lying about who you are means lying about everything. She asked how I could let her introduce me to her father, how I could sit at that table knowing what I knew. I had no good answer, just stood there taking it, knowing I deserved every bit of her anger and pain. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading most. Did I know who her father was when we met? I could have lied again, could have said no, but I was done lying to her. I told her I found out early on and didn't have the strength to walk away. That I'd been selfish and weak and she'd paid the price for my cowardice. Elena backed away from me like I was contagious, told me her father was right about people like me, that organized crime destroys everything it touches. She said I'd destroyed her ability to trust, destroyed her sense of judgment, made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. Because how could she be studying to uphold the law while falling in love with someone who broke it for a living? The cognitive dissonance was tearing her apart and I could see it happening in real time. She asked if I'd used her to get to her father, if that was the plan all along. I swore to her that wasn't true, that I'd never pumped her for information, never used our relationship like that. She didn't believe me, couldn't believe me, because why would she? I'd already proven I was capable of elaborate deception. Before she left, she turned back one last time and said something that haunted me for months after. She said the saddest part wasn't that I'd lied, it was that somewhere under all the lies she still loved me, and that made her feel like she was betraying everything she stood for. The door closed behind her and I knew that was it, the end of us. But the nightmare was just beginning, because now both families knew about the relationship, and both sides saw it as the ultimate betrayal. My father was furious that I'd let her go without getting any useful information, said I'd wasted a golden opportunity and put the family at greater risk for nothing. Elena's father was equally enraged when she finally broke down and told her parents everything. Judge Morrison felt personally violated, like I'd infiltrated his home under false pretenses, which honestly I kind of had. He saw it as psychological warfare, an intentional move by my family to compromise his judgment and integrity. The idea that it might have been genuine, that two people from opposite worlds had simply fallen for each other, didn't compute for him. Everything had to be calculated, strategic, part of some larger mob scheme. Things escalated fast after that. Judge Morrison recused himself from the case, but not before making damn sure his replacement was just as determined to take us down. The new judge, some hard-ass from San Francisco with a reputation for maximum sentences, came in guns blazing. My father blamed me for the increased scrutiny, said if I'd just stayed away from the judge's daughter, we might have had a chance at a fair trial. Now every move we made was under a microscope, every decision analyzed for potential Elena-related angles. The feds even questioned her, brought her in to ask if I'd ever disclosed family business, if she'd passed information to her father. She hadn't, because I'd never put her in that position, but the interrogation traumatized her anyway. Her law school friends started looking at her differently, whispering when she walked by, wondering if she'd known all along, if she was somehow complicit. Her reputation was getting dragged through the mud right alongside mine. I I tried reaching out a few times through intermediaries, people who weren't connected to the family, just to make sure she was okay. She never responded, and honestly, I didn't blame her. What could I possibly say that would make any of this better? Sorry I lied about being a mobster? Sorry your dad's career-defining case is against my family? Sorry our love story turned into a Greek tragedy? There were no words adequate for the mess we'd created. Then about 6 weeks after everything blew up, something happened that changed the game entirely. Elena's father received a death threat. Not just any threat, but a detailed, credible one that mentioned Elena by name, described her daily routine, the route she took to school, the coffee shop where we used to meet. The feds took it seriously, assigned protective details to the whole Morrison family. Judge Morrison immediately assumed it came from my family, that this was retaliation for his role in the case. He wasn't entirely wrong to think that, except for one crucial detail. The threat didn't come from us. My father was many things, ruthless, calculating, willing to do whatever it took to protect the family business, but he had rules. Strict ones. You don't target families, you don't go after women and children, and you definitely don't threaten federal judges in ways that bring down even more heat. This wasn't his style, which meant someone else was making moves, trying to escalate the situation, maybe even trying to start a war that would benefit them when the dust settled. I found out about the threat through Marco, who heard it from his cousin in the police department. My first thought was Elena, whether she was safe, whether she was scared. My second thought was that I needed to find out who sent that threat before my family got blamed for something we didn't do. I started digging, calling in favors, talking to people on the street who might have heard something. What I discovered was worse than I'd imagined. There was a rival family, the Castellanos out of Vegas, who'd been looking to expand into LA territory for years. They saw the federal investigation as an opportunity, a chance to weaken the Russos while we were distracted with legal problems. The threat against Judge Morrison wasn't about the case at all, it was about creating chaos, making it look like we'd gone rogue and lost control, which would justify them moving in to take over our operations under the guise of restoring order. I took this information to my father, laid out everything I'd found. He listened, verified it through his own channels, and confirmed my suspicions. The Castellanos were making a play, using the Morrison situation as cover. Now we had a problem, because if something actually happened to Elena or her family, we'd be the prime suspects regardless of the truth. The feds would come down on us even harder, and the Castellanos would slide right into the power vacuum. My father made a decision then that shocked everyone. He decided to protect the Morrisons, not out of kindness or guilt, but pure strategic necessity. If they died on our watch, we were finished. He assigned some of our best guys to shadow Elena discreetly, keep her safe without her even knowing they were there. It was strange, surreal even, protecting the daughter of the man trying to destroy us, but that's how twisted the situation had become. I wanted to warn Elena myself, tell her the threat wasn't from us, that she needed to be extra careful. But reaching out would only make things worse, make her think I was stalking her or trying to manipulate her again. So I had to settle for watching from a distance, making sure the protection detail stayed sharp, living with the knowledge that the woman I loved was in danger partially because she'd been associated with me. The guilt was eating me alive, knowing that loving her had painted a target on her back. This was exactly what my father had warned me about, why love was considered weakness in our world. People you care about become leverage, become vulnerabilities that enemies exploit. The Castellanos made their move 3 weeks later, but not the way anyone expected. Instead of going after Elena directly, they leaked information to the press, falsified evidence suggesting the Russo family had been planning the hit all along. Suddenly every news outlet was running stories about mob violence, witness intimidation, the dangers faced by judges who stand up to organized crime. Judge Morrison's face was everywhere, being painted as a hero standing against overwhelming odds. The public pressure was intense, demanding maximum prosecution, demanding we be made examples of. The trial date got moved up, the charges got enhanced, and our legal team was scrambling to counter a narrative that had already solidified in the public consciousness. We were losing the war before it even really started, and the Castellanos were positioning themselves to pick up the pieces. Elena got pulled deeper into the mess when reporters started camping outside her apartment, shoving cameras in her face, asking about her relationship with me, whether she'd been threatened, whether she feared for her life. She stopped going to classes, basically became a prisoner in her own home. I watched all of this from afar, feeling helpless and furious. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. We were supposed to be different, supposed to beat the odds, supposed to find a way to make it work despite everything. Instead, we'd become casualties of a game bigger than both of us, pawns in a war we never wanted to fight. My father's legal team managed to prove the Castellanos' involvement in the threats, got evidence to the FBI showing the frame job. It helped our case, took some heat off us, but the damage was done. The Morrisons still believed we were monsters, the public still saw us as the bad guys, and Elena still wouldn't take my calls. The preliminary hearing started in September, and I had to sit in that courtroom day after day, watching Elena in the gallery with her family. She never looked at me, not once, kept her eyes straight ahead or on her phone, anywhere but in my direction. It killed me seeing her like that, seeing what this had done to her spirit. The vibrant, passionate girl I'd fallen for had been replaced by someone guarded and hollow, going through the motions but not really living. I'd done that to her, or at least contributed to it, and that knowledge was heavier than any prison sentence they could give me. During one recess, I managed to get close enough to slip her a note, just a few words scribbled on paper. "I'm sorry. You deserved better. Stay safe." I don't know if she read it or threw it away, she didn't acknowledge it either way, just walked out with her father's security team surrounding her. The trial itself was a circus, media everywhere, protesters outside the courthouse. The whole thing turned into a spectacle about justice versus corruption. My family's lawyers were good, the best money could buy, but the prosecution had momentum and public opinion on their side. Witnesses testified, evidence got presented, and slowly the walls closed in. Through it all, I kept thinking about Elena, wondering if she was watching, if she felt vindicated seeing us brought down, or if part of her still felt conflicted about the whole thing. I never got an answer to that because she stopped coming to the hearings after the first week. Couldn't handle it, according to Marco's sources, couldn't sit there watching the man she'd loved being portrayed as a criminal, even though that's exactly what I was. Verdict came down in November, mixed results that satisfied no one. Some charges stuck, others didn't, plea deals got negotiated. My father got house arrest and probation, some of the guys got actual prison time, the whole organization got put under federal monitoring. We survived but barely, and everyone knew the Russo family would never be what it was. The empire was crumbling, and I was part of the generation that had let it happen. The Castellanos backed off once they realized they couldn't capitalize on our downfall without bringing heat on themselves, so at least that threat dissipated. Judge Morrison retired shortly after, said the stress had taken its toll, that he wanted to spend time with family and step away from the bench. Everyone called him a hero for his sacrifice, for standing up to organized crime at personal cost. He was a hero, I couldn't even be mad about it because he'd been right about us all along. I saw Elena one last time, completely by accident, at a bookstore in Santa Monica about 6 months after everything settled. She was in the biography section, looked healthier than the last time I'd seen her, some color back in her cheeks. I almost walked away, almost let her have her piece, but something made me approach her. She saw me coming, tensed up but didn't run. We stood there in awkward silence for a minute before I said the only thing I could think of. I told her I was sorry, not for loving her because I couldn't regret that, but for the pain that love had caused. She nodded slowly, said she'd spent months angry, months crying, months trying to understand how she could have been so blind. Then she said something that gave me a tiny bit of hope. She said she'd worked through most of it in therapy, realized that people are complicated, that good and bad aren't always clearly defined, and that love doesn't follow logic or rules. She didn't forgive me, made that clear, maybe never would, but she'd found a way to move forward. That was enough for me. She asked what I was doing now and I told her the truth. I was out, had cut ties with the family business, was trying to build something legitimate, something clean. It wasn't glamorous, wasn't easy, but it was honest work. She seemed surprised by that, like she hadn't expected me to actually change. We talked for maybe 20 minutes, surface level stuff, nothing deep, but it was civil, almost friendly. When we said goodbye, she wished me luck with a small smile that reminded me of the girl I'd met in that coffee shop all those months ago. I walked away knowing that was closure, that we'd never be together but at least we'd found peace. Some love stories don't get happy endings, they just get endings that hurt a little less than they could have. This was one of those stories. But here's the thing, and this is why you need to stick around this channel, the story doesn't actually end there. Because 6 months after that bookstore meeting, something happened that brought Elena and me crashing back into each other's lives. Something neither of us saw coming, something that proved fate wasn't done messing with us yet. See, my little sister, the one I mentioned way back, she got into trouble, serious trouble with some people connected to the old life I'd left behind. And the only person who could help her, the only lawyer skilled enough and brave enough to take on the case, was Elena Morrison. Yeah, you heard that right. The universe has jokes. So if you want to know how that conversation went, how I had to walk back into Elena's life and beg her to save my sister, how we ended up working together despite everything, you need to check out the next video. Because that story, man, that's where things get really complicated. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when we're forced to face each other again, when old feelings collide with new circumstances, when the line between love and hate gets blurred beyond recognition. Hit that next video, subscribe if you haven't already, because this saga is far from over, and the best parts, or maybe the worst parts depending on how you look at it, are still to come. See you there.